Hello, my name is Carl Surrey, and this is a video tutorial for the Facebook group called Fans of Ceres Software. Now this is part 6 of what I call a beginner's guide, which is hopefully helping you learn a bit more about what PhotoPlus can do. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at the gradient tool or the gradient fill tool. The icon for it can be found down here on the left hand side of the screen with the tools toolbar, and it is this one here, and it is in the same menu as the flood fill tool, but it is the gradient fill tool, which is this very colourful box icon. You can also access it by pressing the G key. Once selected, the options for this tool run above the main display area. The first option is blending modes. The first one is by default normal. Now the blending modes work in the same way as they do with layers, in the fact that you've got multiply, dodge, add, overlay and all the other ones. Now I personally have never ever used anything other than normal, so I really cannot explain to you how and when you would use these other blending modes. Next to that is opacity, where it's set by default at 100, but you can lower it down to whatever percentage you want. So that would just mean it will, if you have it set, say for example, going from black to white, the opacity, it would probably go from grey to white. Again, it's something I've never really altered. It's always been on 100. I will skip this bit here and go over here to reverse and transparency. Now transparency, I always leave with the tick on for transparency. As you can see, it describes it toggled between transparent and non-transparent versions of the selected gradient. Don't know whether that makes much sense to you. It makes very little sense to me, but like I said, I've never altered it. Now the reverse option, you can put a tick in here or take it out. As you can see from this display of the gradient here, if I take that tick out again, it's gone like black on the left to white on the right, and reversing it literally just does reverse it. But it's not 100% necessary, because you can just as easily reverse it by either coming from top to bottom or from bottom to top, and you can reverse it that way. But I will demonstrate that a bit later. Right, this box here is set by default on linear, which is the different types of gradient. There are 4 different types: linear, radial, conical and square. We will stick with linear for now. Right, this box here, which displays the gradient, it also displays the gradient in the colours that are set. Now the colours are set here in the colour tab, and by default it is black foreground, white background, which basically means it will go from black to white, like it is displayed up here. Now I have touched on this before in past tutorials, be it the video tutorials or the written tutorials. The written ones can be downloaded from the Fans of Ceres Software Facebook page. But a quick recap is, if you want to change the colour, be it of the foreground or the background, you click on whichever box that you want to change, say the foreground. It will open the colour selector. Here it starts off at the red end of the spectrum, and you can click anywhere in here. As you can see here, the old colour is black, and the new colour will be whatever one that you are clicking on. If you want to change the spectrum, you can either drag this bar down or just click down here and it will move to the blue spectrum, or the lighter blue spectrum, and you can go to the more royal blue spectrum, area spectrum, or down to maroon and back down to red, because it goes from red all the way around to red again. But I'll put this back at the top, and I will just set it at a red colour. Click OK. And as you can see, it is now excuse me, set foreground colour to red. Now it hasn't affected this at the moment, because you actually have to set the colour from here, but I'm just using this as a demonstration of how to quickly show you how to change the colours. So if I click on the white, double click on the white one and say pick yellow, click OK, that is now set red foreground, yellow background. To get back to the default colours, you can just click on this reset colours button here, and it will go back to black and white. So just to go back to this box up here along the top where the gradient is displayed, if you click inside that, it will open this gradient toolbox. Now along here you've got another representation of the gradient, which is going from black to white. Above that, in this section here, you've got a load of already pre-made gradients. Now it is currently set on the first one, which is going from black to white. You can go from black to transparent, white to transparent, and then they start becoming very colourful indeed. For example, go from yellow, orange into red. And these are all the default options. There are some other options here. So, for example, you can go to oranges, for example, and then it gives you all the various preset orange gradients. Water, which is all the various what they class as water gradients, probably because of the colour, I would imagine, although quite how yellow and red is classed as a water gradient, I really don't know. But I'll go back to the default option and the black to white option, and then I'll click OK. So that is that colour, that gradient set. So if I now, if you click somewhere on the image, doesn't matter where you start really, you can go diagonally, you can go vertically or horizontally. I'm going to go vertically for now. So you click and the left mouse button, hold and drag down the image, and as you can see, it's gone from a solid black, and it starts to fade into greys, and then comes down to white. And as you can see by the image of the layer over here, they got a similar representation in the icon over here. Now, you don't have to stick with that. You can just continue to do different types of gradient. Like you could go diagonally, and the icon will change similar to what it is on the main image. And like I said before, you can reverse it, because there's just by coming from the opposite direction, because I came this way and it went black to white, but if I went that way it will reverse it. So you don't necessarily need to click on the reverse option up there. If you hold down the shift key while you do this, you will draw, the line will be straight. Hang on, why didn't that work? Let's try that again. So hold down the shift key and it will draw in a straight line. Whereas if you don't hold down the shift key, it wouldn't be, I mean obviously it's a straight line, but say for example if you were coming down the screen, you're not 100% certain whether it's slightly off of center or not. It's a sort of guesswork. But if you hold down the shift, you know it will be a dead straight line. So as you can see, you can do all sorts of types of gradient, and if you only come a little way to draw a little line, the gradient will be very small, and the bigger the line you draw, the bigger the gradient. Right, that is the linear gradient, and it is in black and white. So how about I'll show you about changing the colours. Now this time, underneath this representation of the gradient, you have the word colour, and at the end you have two colour stops. Above them you have opacity stops, which again is something I've never fully understand how to use them, so I've never really altered them. But the colour stops, this end is black, that end is white. So if you click, say the black one, double click, it will open up the same colour selector that I showed you earlier that you can get from the colour tab. So I could click red, click OK. If I wanted it, and then change what is now presently set on white, you can either double click on that or just click it once, and then this box here will go to the colour that it's set at. So you can then click in there. So I could then change that to yellow, click OK, and then click OK again to close it. And as you can see, this representation of the gradient is now red and yellow, where it wasn't altered when I did it from there. So if I then draw the gradients again, they will go from red to yellow or yellow to red, depending on which direction that you go in. Right, next I want to look at the different types of gradient. So we've looked at linear, and so we're now going to look at radial. Now this time I'm going to change the colours again. The more times I do this, it's easier for you to pick up what it is I'm doing. So just click on this gradient representation. I'm going to change the red to a blue. Click OK. Click on the yellow. Stop. Click into the colour panel here, and I'm going to go for a more maroony red colour, and then click OK. As you can see, the representation has changed from blue to maroon. Now if I click in the middle of this image or background and then come outwards, as you can see, it is a radius that starts from a solid blue and fades out to the solid maroon. Now this would be where you'd probably use the reverse, because obviously I doubt it would work, how it would work coming from the outside in. Oh, I see, yeah, you can do it like that. But if you wanted to reverse those and then have maroon in the middle and blue on the outside, then you could use the reverse tick option. So that is radial gradient. Go on to the conical one. Again, I will change the colours. I will change the blue to a green and change the maroon. Let's go to a darker, almost black. OK, and click OK again. And this time I'll come from the middle and work to the outside. Now what this has done, it is going from a solid green along the line that I drew, and then slowly fading into the black round to a solid black, again to the line that I drew. Quite why anybody would need this gradient, I don't know, but that option is there for you if you need it. Right, the last one is square. So again, I will change the colors again. Click on the green stop, click on the color square option, and I'll go yellow, click OK, and then change the black to a darker blue, I think. Yeah. OK, click OK, click OK again. Again, this time I'll go from roughly from the middle, go out, and as it makes it look like you are almost looking down a tunnel, and you know, the light is at the end. If I click reverse on that and then do it the opposite way, as you can see there, it's probably more noticeable, like looking down a tunnel. So the reverse works up better on the other options, not so much on the linear. So they are the 4 different types of gradient you can use. I would say that 95 to 99% of the time you'll be using linear. So that is probably why it is set as a default option. Right, that is a last look at the basic options. Now we need to look at some more slightly advanced options. So before we can go much further, what I'll do is I'll return the colors back to black and white. So I'll click on this stop here and then go up to the top left corner to make it black. As you can see, it's 0, 0, 0 for the red, green, blue. Click OK. Come over to this right hand side and come down to the bottom corner, left hand corner, and to be pure white it really needs to be 255 across all of the red, green, blue. So I'll enter that in, and then that is pure white. Right, now if I click on this first stop, as you can see the location for that is set at 0. I click over here on the right hand stop, the location is 100. Now you may notice there is a little diamond symbol here just above the word color. If I click on that, the location for that is 50. Now you can move any of these stops, but if I move this middle one, click on it, hold and move it, you can alter how fast the gradient will go from black to grey to white. So as you can see here, there's much more black before it gets to the white. I'll put that back to 50, so it's back in the middle. So again, you can move this one over, so it's very similar to just moving the middle one, because it's much more black before it gets to the white. So I'll move this back to 0. Now you can add extra stops. So if you click somewhere along the bottom of this gradient here, it will add another stop, and again with another little diamond icon in the middle, because that is now 50% between that one, although it's 22, but that's 0, 22, but that one is 50% between there and there. So you could theoretically click on this and make it a grayer colour. Click OK. As you can see, it's now black, and it gets grey much quicker. So you could even add another one there, change the colour of that, and put it back to a black colour. So you're going black, grey, black, and then going down to the fading down to the white again. So if I just click OK on that and then draw this across here, as you can see, it makes this banded effect, which is very similar to some of the ones that have already been pre-made. So if I click on this one here, for example, that's been pre-made, you can see here that all the different colour stops that they've set up, or Serif has set up, to make this sort of rainbow effect. So if I click OK on that, come from the other direction. So there you have all the sort of very colourful different gradients that you can use because it's already pre-made. And like I said, there are very many of them that you can choose from. Let's try one of these pop art ones. That one there. So these are just like solid colours by the looks of it. Click OK. So there's not much in the way of gradient going on here, it's just solid colours. Let me go back to the default colours and then click on, that's it. So you can't really edit those ones that have already been made, but you can go back to the original default colours and then click OK, and then you're back to the default black and white. Just to clear up something I said just a little while ago, in that you can't edit the pre-made gradients. You can, because if you click on one of these color stops, you could change the color if you wanted, or if you change the location, you could change where it is along here. But I've yet to work out how to delete one of these pre-made color stops. I've tried right clicking and other options, so you're stuck with the amount of color stops that have been pre-made. That's what I meant by you couldn't edit change these defaults, which is why I went back to the original default to give me the just two color stops, one end and one on the other end. Right, this next part I want to actually use a gradient to show you what something you can do. Now I've made this background, white background, and the first thing I want to do is to fill it with a colour. So I will go to the colour flood fill tool, or you can just press F, and now I need to pick a foreground colour. So I'll just double click on there, and I think I'll go for a lightish blue colour. That one will do. Click OK, and you just click anywhere inside this white box and it should flood fill it with blue. I'll just put this back on the gradient tool, ready for later. As you can see now, I've got the gradient back along the top up here. Now, before I use a gradient, I want to make a rectangled selection. Now, I've put this on a fixed size, you can do from this drop down menu here, and the fixed size I've set up is 1500 by 2500, and if I just click once anywhere inside this box, it will make this selection area. It's gone off the screen a bit, but I can just move it, click and hold and move it around and just centralize it by eye, which looks about right there. Now what I want is this selection on another layer. Now the easiest way to do this is just press Ctrl and J. And if you look down here in the layers display area, you've got the background layer here, and then the layer above, which has got the blue selection with a blank background. So it is to this selected layer that I'm going to be adding a gradient. So just go back to the gradient tool and then double click in, or single click inside this representation of the gradient. Now I'm going to be adding 3 color stops along here. So I'll just click roughly near the end of this white area. Now I want the that's not too bad actually. I wanted 90. I'm on 89, which is near enough. 90, 89. I'll leave it there. Now the color I want, I'm going to, each one is going to be a variation of grey. Now to get grey, these R, G and B colours all need to be the same, or pretty much need to be the same number. It's the easiest way to get to grey. So I'm going to make all of these 80. And then you've got this like dark grey colour. So I'll click OK. That's the first one. Then the next one, I want it on about 70. 76, I'll make that 70. And then click in here to change the colour, and this colour I want to be all 185. Click OK. This is a lighter grey. So as you can already see, it's gone white to a darker grey, back to a lighter grey. And then the last colour stop I want to make is on roughly on about 20%, which I will change to not 20%, 20 location, which I've done there. And now click on this, and then I want to make all these 128. 128. Click OK. So as you can see, it's gone black to a darkish grey, then it goes to a light grey, back to a dark grey, to white. Now at this point, once you've made this gradient, you can save it to be used at a later date. There's a little downward arrow here. If you click on that, you can click Add Item, and it has added it to the end of the default section, or if you was in one of the other sections, it would have added it to that. So that is now added for me to use at a future date as one of my defaults. So once that is done, I'll click OK. Now I'm going to hold down the Shift key and then draw a straight line across. So as you can see, I've now gone from dark, varying shades of grey, slightly dark again, and back to white. So I'll now press Ctrl and D to get rid of the marching ants of the selection area. And the next thing I'm going to use is a Deform tool, which is up here with the second one down from the toolbar. So you just need to click on that button, and then the area will be surrounded by a black line that has certain points along that line, these little squares, which I think are sometimes called handles, and you could deform this selected area in all sorts of different shapes, but I'm going to just alter the bottom two corners. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the control key, and then I'm going to move the first one in a little bit, and then hold down the control key again and move the right hand one in a little bit, for a bit, go back a bit to there, and then if I come up here to where's it, that one there, and I will just get rid of the outside area from the Deform tool, and as you can see, this now looks like a mug or cup, beaker, whichever you want to call it. That may be sitting next to a window, the light shining in this side, and then it's going to be shadow on the other side. I know it's a pretty basic image, but it does demonstrate the power you can have by using the gradient tool. In this next part of this tutorial, I want to use the gradient tool on an actual photograph. Now, what I'll need to do first is to make a new blank layer above the image. So if you come down here to the layers display area, there's a little icon with a white square with a cross in it. Click on that, and when the panel comes up you can just click OK, and as you can see down here there's a blank layer above the background. Now if you come up to the, I've got it on the gradient tool, and come up to the gradient representation. Now you can either use the black going to white or black going to transparent. I will show you both. So we'll go to the black to white first, because what this image needs, because the sky is so bright and the backs of these ladies sitting in this chair are quite dark, I'm going to need it going from black to white, coming black at the top down to the bottom. So if I hold the shift key and come down, then all you need to do is change the blending mode of this layer to overlay, and as you can see now, because it's going from black to white, the black has made the sky darker. If I turn this on and off, that was the original, and because it's going to white, it has made this area much brighter here. So if I just undo that, go back to a blank layer, and then choose the black to transparent, and then do the same thing again, draw a line down, and then change the blending mode to overlay. This has kept the area down here the sort of same darkness that it was, but has introduced more darker colour to the sky, making it a better image. So whether you go from black to white or black to transparent, it will depend on your image and the end result that you are trying to get. Now, in the last beginner's guide tutorial, I did also use a gradient, but on a layer mask. You can check it out, but I will repeat that process here. This was the image that I was working on, and I was using the curves tool. And when you've made the curves tool, a layer mask is automatically added. And then what I did was I used the curves tool to brighten up the whole picture, to try and bring some colour, brightness to the dark rocks on the left, but in doing so I made the sky in this area here on the right very bright indeed. So I added a gradient tool to the layer mask, and what you need to do is actually click on the mask itself, so there's a little white line going around it. Select the type of gradient that you want, which I think I used black to white, and then I drew a line diagonally across, and because of the gradient tool being black here, it blocks off the effect of the tool that this layer mask is attached to. So now this side of the screen is not being brightened by the curves tool. So I've now brought a bit more colour back into this image. So as you can see, you can use the gradient tool, be it directly onto the image, albeit by another layer, like I did here, or you can use a layer mask and then add the gradient tool to that. Now to finish this tutorial off, have a little bit of fun, but also show you about changing blending modes on the layers anyway. I'm going to use this picture again of these two ladies sitting down here, and first of all I'm going to make it into a black and white image, so I'll come up to image, adjust down to black and white, just click OK to get rid of that panel. Then make a new blank layer above, and then just click OK to close this panel. Now I'm going to pick a colourful gradient, which I'm going to pick this one here, which is the rainbow one I looked at earlier on in this tutorial. Click OK, and then I'll hold down the Shift key, draw a straight line down to add this multicoloured gradient. Now at the moment its blending mode is on normal. Now like I did earlier, I could go straight to overlay, but what I want to do is flick through all the different options so you can see how the different blending modes will act differently with gradients. So let's go first to dissolve, which has no great effect. If I just leave the cursor over this, I can then use the wheel mouse to scroll through all the different options. So multiply, burn. Now some of these, like go between multiply and burn, there's very little difference happening, but some have vast differences that they affect how they affect the image. Linear burn, darken, darker color, screen, dodge, add, lighten, lighter color, overlay, soft light, hard light, vivid light, which I think is a new blending mode for PhotoPlus X8. I don't remember it being in the version I had before. Pin light, linear light, difference, quite like that one, very psychedelic. Exclusion, hard mix, hue, which just has no real effect at all. Saturation, again had no effect. Color, lightness, and lightness is the last one. So as you can see, the different blending modes in conjunction with the gradient that you've added onto the layer will have different effects. So overlay, especially if you're using black to white or black to transparent, would probably be your first port of call. But if you're going to be using color gradients, you can go through and have a look at all the different settings for blending modes and see which one you like. I think I'll leave you with that image. I hope this tutorial has been of some help. Sorry it's not probably as in-depth as it could be, because there are some areas of the gradient tool that I don't know too much about and very rarely ever use, if ever. So I can't really help you about how they work. But as this is only a beginner's guide, I'm hoping it is enough to get you started, and then you can learn a bit more by yourself. Thank you very much, and goodbye.